The big engines had gone on strike, so the Fat Controller had shut them in the sheds. Edward and Thomas were now running the main line, while Percy ran the branch line. It wasn't an ideal situation, especially for Edward, who often struggled to hold the express. But the three engines did their best. Percy enjoyed running up the branch line, listening to the songs Annie and Clarabelle sang as they puffed along. One day, Percy was waiting at the station with Thomas as their passengers changed from the local to the branch line train. Percy was observing the passengers. He spotted a man pull out a small cardboard box, then place a little white stick in his mouth, which he then set ablaze. He was very puzzled, even more so when smoke started to puff from the man's mouth. "What's he doing?" he asked Thomas. "Ah, he's smoking." "Smoking? I thought only engines did that." No, silly. People smoke these things called cigarettes as a hobby. My driver always keeps a pack on him." "Oh, I see," said Percy, who didn't see at all. "My guard doesn't approve of my driver smoking. He calls it a dirty habit." Just then, Thomas' guard blew his whistle. "Speaking of the devil, I must be off. Bye, Percy. Take care of Annie and Clarabelle." And Thomas steamed away. "Toodaloo!" chimed Annie and Clarabelle, but Percy was too distracted by the idea of smoking to peep a goodbye. A few weeks later, a new shipment of coal arrived from the mainland. It was a much cheaper source of coal and it wasn't very good. Edward, Percy and Thomas were all beginning to feel stuffed up. Large amounts of clinker began to form in their fireboxes, which made them most uncomfortable. Imagine having to use that filthy rubbish. It certainly wouldn't suit such important engines like us. You know the only reason we have to use that cheaper coal is because you three refuse to work. Therefore we don't have enough money for our normal lot. Perhaps the Fat Controller should sell you lot off. Then we could all have high quality coal. The big engines grumbled and muttered to each other as Edward and Thomas laughed amongst themselves. One grey, dreary afternoon, Percy was once again sitting in the junction waiting for Thomas. He wrinkled his nose several times, trying not to sneeze. "We'll have to speak to the Fat Controller about this coal. I'm sick of tidying out your firebox." At last, Thomas arrived. His cheeks were bright crimson and he was out of puff. Sorry I'm late, Percy. I had trouble building my fire this morning, thanks to this blasted new coal." Thomas's driver then stepped out of his cab and placed a cigarette in his mouth. "Look, Thomas, your driver is... Percy shut his eyes tightly and sneezed a loud achoo! Soot purred from Percy's funnel and showered the station. It covered some of the passengers, the station master and Thomas's driver. Thomas guffawed with laughter as people crowded around Percy and his crew in anger. Thomas's driver had angrily put out his cigarette and stormed back to his engine. "Oh dear, Percy, I know the coal doesn't agree with you, but you don't have to make it everybody else's problem too," laughed Thomas as the passengers climbed crossly on board his train. "After all, it's a rather dirty habit." Percy said nothing. He was most humiliated, though he was relieved the bigger engines weren't around to see. He felt even more embarrassed when the Fat Controller came to speak to him. "I'm sorry, sir. I never meant to. That's quite alright, Percy, interrupted the Fat Controller. It isn't entirely your fault. I've received a number of complaints from Cruz and Edward. I'll sort out this code problem immediately. Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. How you do that, sir? With a little persuasion, said the controller as he tightened his hat and returned to his car. Percy chortled to himself. He knew exactly who the Fat Controller was going to speak to. And he was very glad he wasn't one of the bigger engines. But I mustn't tell you any more, or I shall spoil the next story.